Kyoto, 1605. The final strike of the tournament. Ichi's bokken snapped in half. 30 seconds. 7 years of training gone. The crowd went silent. His opponent smiled. That night, Ichi learned something the Book of Five Rings never explains. Discipline doesn't make you better. It erases you. Miyamoto Musashi didn't become legendary by training harder. He became it by destroying who he was. And that's the price nobody warns you about. Extreme discipline doesn't improve your life. It replaces you. By the end of this story, you'll understand the 5 rings that separates warriors from men who only practice. By morning, Ichi realized something worse than failure. Comfort had been his real enemy. Chapter 1. The Awakening. Dawn came too early. Ichi hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it. His bokken shattering, the champion's smirk, 400 people watching him fail. The sound of their silence louder than any cheering as he walked off the tournament platform with a broken weapon and broken pride. 7 years of training, gone in 30 seconds. He dressed slowly, hands still trembling from yesterday's humiliation. The bruise on his ribs where the champion's strike had landed after breaking his guard throbbed with each breath. A physical reminder. A permanent mark of average. Walking to the dojo felt like walking to execution. The other students were already training when he arrived. The moment Ichi entered, conversations stopped. Eyes turned away. Not with malice, with pity. Somehow, that was worse. Kenji, the youngest student at 16, approached carefully. Ichi-san. Yesterday was... Don't. Ichi's voice came out harsher than intended. Just don't. The boy retreated. Around the dojo, students returned to their practice, movements suddenly louder, more deliberate, filling the awkward silence with the sounds of bokken striking makiwara posts. No one looked at Ichi directly. He was invisible, not because they couldn't see him, because seeing him was uncomfortable. Ichi moved to his usual training spot in the corner, the place where mediocre students practiced, away from the advanced section where the real warriors trained. He picked up a practice sword, felt its weight. Solid, unbroken, unlike the one that had shattered yesterday. Unlike him. He began basic cuts. Down strike, side strike, thrust. The movements he'd done 10,000 times. His form was technically correct. His master had told him so many times. Your technique is adequate, Ichi. Your form is acceptable. Adequate. Acceptable. Average. The words that defined 7 years of his life. An hour passed. 2. The other students cycled through their training advanced kata, partner sparring, weapons work. Ichi just did basic cuts, over and over, trying to find something in the repetition. Finding nothing, except the hollow echo of wood cutting air. At midday, Yamamoto-sensei's voice cut through the dojo. Ichi, my quarters, now. Every student stopped. The master never called anyone during training, never interrupted the flow. 40 faces watched Ichi walk across the dojo floor, each step feeling heavier than the last. In Yamamoto-sensei's private room, the old man sat at a low table, tea already poured. 2 cups. He'd been waiting. Sit. Ichi sat, back straight, eyes down. Respectful position for receiving discipline. For hearing what he already knew, that he'd brought shame to the dojo, that his performance was unacceptable, that maybe he should consider a different path. Show me your hands. The command surprised him. Ichi extended his hands. Calloused, yes, rough from years of gripping bokken, but not destroyed, not bleeding, not like the hands of someone who truly pushed beyond limits. Yamamoto-sensei studied them in silence. Then, 7 years you've trained here. 7 years of adequate effort. Tell me, what did you learn yesterday? Ichi's jaw tightened. That I'm not good enough. No, try again. That hard work isn't enough. Closer, but still wrong. The master sipped his tea, completely calm. Yesterday, you learned that you've been lying to yourself. You think you train hard. You don't. You train comfortably. There's a difference. The words hit like physical blows. Your father was a samurai, Yamamoto-sensei continued. Your grandfather, 7 generations of warriors, all died by 40, all buried with honor. All perfectly, completely average. They walked the warrior path sleepwalking, competent, honorable, unconscious. He leaned forward. You can be different, or you can be them. The choice is yours, but you must choose now. Because yesterday broke something in you. I can see it. The question is, will you use that break to rebuild yourself? Or will you use it as an excuse to quit? I don't want to quit, Sensei. I want... Ichi's voice cracked. I want to stop being average. I can't. I can't live like this anymore. Good. That's the first honest thing you've said in 7 years. Yamamoto-sensei set down his tea with deliberate precision. Miyamoto Musashi wrote the Book of 5 Rings after 60 duels to the death, after 30 years of wandering, after a lifetime of practice so extreme that normal people thought he'd gone mad. He didn't write about motivation. He wrote about the method. 5 rings. 5 principles that transform soft into savage. The master's eyes went hard. You asked me once what separates great swordsmen from good ones. Here's the answer. Great swordsmen train until their minds break, until they died, until discipline consumes them so completely that they become unrecognizable even to themselves. I want that. The words came out desperate, hungry. No, you want the result, the reputation, the victory. You don't want the price. What's the price? Everything you are, the person sitting here, the comfortable one, who trains adequately, who's satisfied with acceptable, he has to die, completely. And the person who replaces him, you won't recognize him. Your family won't recognize him. Normal people will think something's wrong with him. Silence filled the room. Outside, the sounds of the dojo continued, students practicing, bokken striking, normal life proceeding. The life Ichi was about to leave behind. I'll pay it, he whispered. Yamamoto-sensei studied him for a long moment. Something changed in the old man's face. Not hope, recognition, like seeing a ghost of someone he'd known long ago. Then tomorrow, 3 hours before dawn, you begin Earth Ring. The first principle, brutal self-assessment. You will learn exactly how unconscious you've been. How much of your life have you spent asleep? Most students can't face that truth. It destroys them. He stood. Conversation over. Tonight, count every breath until you sleep. Tomorrow morning, tell me the number. If you can't, you weren't paying attention. If you weren't paying attention, you're still average. Earth Ring is about knowing the truth about yourself, starting with the smallest thing, one breath, building to the biggest thing, your entire existence. Ichi bowed deeply. When he rose, Yamamoto-sensei was already at the door. One more thing, bring your broken bokken tomorrow. We'll burn it, because the warrior who used that weapon, he's already dead. Tomorrow, we build someone new. That night, lying in darkness, Ichi began counting breaths. 1, 2, 3. His mind wandered after 7. He started over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Lost count again. Frustration rose. He let it pass. Started over. This was going to be harder than any tournament. This was going to destroy him. He couldn't wait to begin. Chapter 2. The Principle. 7 days into Earth Ring, Ichi thought he was dying. Not physically, mentally. The constant counting, tracking, observing every breath, every sword swing, every bite of food, every step walked. His mind screamed for rest, for unconsciousness, for just 1 hour of not knowing himself. The truth was worse than he'd imagined. Day 1 count, 12,847 breaths, but he'd lost count 19 times, missed hours, entire chunks of existence where he'd been present in body but absent in awareness. Day 7, count, 18,923 breaths, lost count 3 times, progress. But the data revealed something horrible. Of 18,000 breaths, he'd been fully present for maybe 2,000. The rest? Mechanical, unconscious, animal. 10% are alive, 90% sleepwalking. Yamamoto-sensei read the numbers without expression, and the sword swings, 1,000 each morning, time decreasing by 1 minute daily, as instructed. Show me your hands. Ichi extended them. Now they were destroyed, blisters torn open, reformed, torn again. Blood stained the bokken handle dark. Good. The master's voice held no sympathy. Pain keeps you honest. Earth Ring is Shoshin beginner's mind. Not metaphorically. Literally. You must see yourself as you actually are. Not as you wish to be. What did you learn? That I'm barely conscious most of the time. Yes. And that I've been lying to myself about my effort. Yes. And Ichi's jaw tightened. That average was generous. I'm worse than average. I'm asleep. Yamamoto-sensei nodded slowly. Miyamoto Musashi wrote, "Know the smallest things and the biggest things, the shallow and the deep." Most students think this means study everything. Wrong. It means to see yourself completely. The smallest detail, one breath. The biggest truth, your entire existence is mostly unconscious. He walked to the window, looking out at the courtyard where Ichi had been swinging his sword every morning in the darkness. Your father was a samurai, but the path of the sword never found him. He walked it sleepwalking, died sleepwalking. Honorable, yes. But conscious? No. You can be different. Or you can be him. The words cut deeper than any blade. Shoshin, the master continued, means beginner's mind, because beginners see reality. They don't have the skill to hide behind, no experience to blur the truth. A master's worst enemy is the illusion of mastery. The moment you think you know yourself, you've stopped seeing yourself. He turned to face Ichi directly. From now until I tell you otherwise, you track everything, not just breaths and swings. Track your thoughts. When they wander, what triggers distraction? How long can you hold focus? Track your emotions. What causes anger? What creates fear? Track your body, energy patterns, pain points, sleep quality. You become a scientist studying the only subject that matters, yourself. Ichi felt something crack open inside his chest. Not breaking, awakening, like eyes opening for the first time. Here's what the scrolls don't tell you, Yamamoto-sensei said quietly. Shoshin isn't comfortable. Seeing yourself clearly is vital. Most people run from self-knowledge their entire lives because the truth is unbearable. You're not as disciplined as you think, not as strong, not as present. The gap between who you believe you are and who you actually are, that gap is where average lives. The warriors close that gap, not through delusion, through data. He placed a small journal on the table between them. Every night, write what you learned about yourself that day. One truth minimum, no philosophy, no excuses, just fact. Today I noticed anger when criticized. Today I lost focus during repetitive tasks. Today fear made me hesitate in sparring. Build a map of your actual self, not your ideal self, your real self. Ichi picked up the journal. The pages were blank, waiting, like the person he hadn't yet become. Sensei, he said slowly, if I see all my weaknesses this clearly, won't that destroy my confidence? Yes. The answer hung in the air. And that's exactly what needs to happen. False confidence is poison. It makes you stop growing. Real confidence comes later, after you've faced every weakness, every flaw, every failure, and continued anyway. First, you must be destroyed. Then, rebuilt. Earth Ring destroys. Water Ring rebuilds. Yamamoto-sensei moved toward the door, then paused. His voice shifted, not speaking to Ichi alone anymore, but through him, across time, to anyone who would hear this teaching. You're not the only one walking this path. Throughout history, warriors have discovered these truths. And today, in your time, there are others like you, men seeking discipline, presence, purpose. His eyes seem to see through decades, through centuries. If you feel called to this path, if Ichi's struggle mirrors your own, join us. This isn't just ancient history, this is your training too. Walk with us. Ichi bowed deeply, not fully understanding that his master was speaking not just to him, but to all warriors across all time who would hear this story. When he rose, Yamamoto-sensei was gone. Ichi opened the journal and wrote his first entry. Day 7. Earth Ring. Truth learned. I am asleep in my own life. Today I begin waking up. Outside, snow fell in silence. Inside, a warrior was being born. Chapter 3. The Test. Week 2 of Earth Ring broke something fundamental in Ichi's mind. The tracking had become total. He'd created a system. Sunrise sword practice 1,000 swings, timed. Morning meditation, count breaths. Note when mind wanders. Midday combat drills, track hesitations, note fear responses. Evening journal, record day's truths. Night meditation, observe dreams forming at the edge of sleep. The data was horrifying. His mind wandered every 7.3 seconds on average. Fear appeared 43 times daily, small fears, like embarrassment, like judgment from other students. His sword swings were mechanically correct but emotionally absent. He was performing discipline, not embodying it. Then came the test he didn't know was coming. Yamamoto-sensei entered the dojo during morning practice, accompanied by a stranger. Tall, older, scarred face with one eye white and dead. The man moved like water, like inevitability. "This is Kenzo," the master said. "He's passing through Kyoto. I told him we have a student attempting Earth Ring. He's offered to test you." Ichi's heartbeat spiked. He tracked it. Fear response #44 of the day. Kenzo smiled without warmth. "Earth Ring is about knowing yourself. Let's see how much you know." He drew his bokken in a movement so smooth it seemed like the weapon had always been in his hand. "Defend yourself. Every time I strike you, tell me what emotion you felt before the strike landed. If you can't name it, you're not tracking. You're pretending." The first strike came high. Ichi blocked, barely. Fear. Second, strike, low. Block. Anger at myself for slow reaction. Third strike, faint then thrust. Hit his ribs. Anticipation. I was predicting your attack instead of seeing it. Kenzo's dead eye fixed on him. Good. Again. For 30 minutes, Kenzo attacked. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, sometimes stopping mid-strike to watch Ichi's face. Each time, Ichi had to name the internal state before defending the next attack. Doubt, pride, fear of pain, frustration, shame at being watched by other students. Every emotion tracked, every internal movement observed. His body was being beaten, but his mind stayed sharp, clinical, detached, observing the one being beaten as if from outside. Finally, Kenzo stopped. He was barely breathing heavy. Ichi was drenched in sweat, ribs bruising, hands shaking. Yamamoto-sensei said, "You're serious about the 5 rings. Are you?" "Yes." "Why?" The question cut through everything. Ichi opened his mouth to give the answer he'd been telling himself, because he wanted to be great, because mediocrity was unbearable, because, I don't know. The truth came out before he could stop it. I thought I knew. Now I just know I can't go back to being unconscious. It's not even about greatness anymore. I can't unsee how asleep I was. Kenzo's expression shifted. Something like respect, or maybe recognition. That's the real test. Not whether you can track emotions during combat. whether you've seen the truth and can't ignore it anymore. Once you see how much of your life you spend unconscious, sleep becomes unbearable. He sheathed his bokken with a clean snap. Musashi wrote that after his duel with Sasaki Kojiro, the most famous fight in Japanese history, the one that made his legend, he disappeared into a cave for 2 years. Not to celebrate, to analyze why he'd almost lost. The winner is studying his own near defeat. That's Earthring mastery. That's Shoshin, never being satisfied with seeing yourself. Always looking deeper. Kenzo turned to Yamamoto sensei. He'll do. Most students quit when they realize Earthring never ends. This one looks like he's starting to understand it's not supposed to end. Self-knowledge is eternal. The day you think you know yourself completely is the day you've stopped being a warrior. He left without another word. Ichi stood in the center of the dojo, body screaming pain, mind eerily calm. The other students had stopped training to watch. He could feel their judgment. Why does Ichi get special tests? Why does the master care about him? He tracked it. Emotion #47, social anxiety. Desire for approval. Then let it pass like wind through bamboo. That night, Ichi wrote in his journal, Week 2. Truth. I started this to be better than others. Now I just want to be conscious in my own existence. Competition is ego. Awareness is warrior practice. The goal isn't to be great. The goal is to be awake. But awareness brought new torment. Now that he could see his unconscious patterns, the mental drift, the emotional reactivity, the physical tension, he couldn't stop seeing them. Every distraction noted, every weakness catalogued, every failure observed. His mind became a battlefield between the observer and the observed. The part that tracked and the part that was tracked. Both were him, neither was him. The separation created something new, a third presence. Watching both. Yamamoto sensei had warned him, Earthring destroys the illusion of self. What Ichi didn't know was that destruction feels like death. The person he'd been comfortable in his mediocrity, safe in his unconsciousness, was dying, and the person replacing him hadn't fully formed yet. He existed in the gap, the void between death and rebirth. Late that night, he woke from a dream he couldn't remember. His first thought, how many breaths did I take while sleeping? The question was insane. The question was perfect. He'd crossed a threshold. Normal people don't track their breathing while unconscious. Normal people don't analyze their dreams. Normal people don't see every moment as data about themselves. He was no longer normal. He didn't know if that made him a warrior or just crazy. Maybe there was no difference. Chapter 4. Warrior Psychology. 3 weeks in, Yamamoto sensei summoned Ichi. You're changing. Students say you're obsessive. They're right, but don't understand why. He tapped his temple. Your brain is designed for survival, not truth. It lies constantly, the voice saying you're tired, usually lying. Your brain fights consciousness because awareness is dangerous. Dangerous how? Conscious people see the gap between stimulus and response. Most humans react mechanically, no space, no choice. Awareness creates space. In that space, power appears. He slid a book across. Fudoshin, the immovable mind. Takuan wrote, Mind must flow like water but stop on nothing. Earthring builds this through neurology. 3 weeks of awareness practice rewires your prefrontal cortex, quiets your amygdala. Childhood patterns overwritten. Musashi. Today is victory over yourself of yesterday. Yesterday's brain doesn't own today. The person who started Earthring, his brain is gone. That's why it feels like dying. Yes, old Ichi is dead. New Ichi isn't born. You exist in transformation. Outside, cherry blossoms moved in the wind. Ichi had crossed the point of no return. Chapter 5. The First Transformation. Week 4. Demonstration for Lord Takeda. Today we demonstrate for Lord Takeda, Yamamoto sensei announced. He chooses which dojo to sponsor. Your performance determines our survival. Every student's face showed pressure, except Ichi. His face showed nothing. Tracking had become automatic, breath count running, emotional states noted, released, continuous awareness with no room for anxiety. Present moment, only moment. Lord Takeda arrived, powerful, skeptical, bored. Students performed kata, perfect form, lifeless execution. Lord Takeda looked disinterested. Ichi's turn. He stepped to the center, bowed, drew bokken. Same movements as others, but where they performed, he inhabited. Every strike from total presence, no thought between intention and action. He moved like water flowing, unstoppable. Mushin, no mind. Technique transcending thought, becoming pure expression. Silence. Again. Slowly, Lord Takeda commanded. Even at half speed, the quality remained. Awake inside every microsecond. Who trained you? How long? Yamamoto sensei. 4 weeks intensive. You've only trained for 1 month. No, my lord, 3 years in this dojo, but conscious for only 4 weeks. Before, I practiced while thinking about practice. Now I practice while practicing. Nothing else exists. The difference isn't skill, it's presence. Lord Takeda studied him. You seem calmer. Not nervous? I notice nervousness, but I'm not identified with it. It occurs, but I'm not it. So it doesn't control my actions. You speak like a Zen monk. I speak like someone who's watched his mind for 4 weeks. Lord Takeda laughed. Enlightened or insane? Perhaps both. You have my sponsorship. After, the master said, you passed Earth Ring, but now comes harder. Water Ring teaches transformation, requires destroying what you just built. Identity, death is approaching. Tomorrow, you learn to flow. But this was only the beginning. Earth Ring had shown Ichi his own unconsciousness. It had built awareness. It had created a presence. What he didn't know yet was that presence alone isn't enough. Water Ring would teach him what awareness does when reality fights back, when discipline must adapt or shatter. Chapter 6. Deep Training, Arc. Water Ring, Mountain Temple. Yamamoto Sensei led Ichi up mist-covered paths. The summit, one monk waited. Ryokan, 30 days. First 3 days, silence. They sat beside a stream watching water flow. 8 hours daily. Ichi's mind rebelled. Day 3, shift. Water never fought rocks. Went around, through, over, never stopped. Over centuries, water won through persistence. Day 4. What did you see? Water doesn't fight. It finds another way. Musashi. Water adopts the shape of its receptacle. Stop fighting reality with rigid plans. New schedule. Wake at 3 a.m. Sword practice with no reps until body says stop, then 5 more minutes. Walking meditation, notice how you navigate obstacles. Zazen with random bell, learning to exist in not knowing. Second week revelation. Stopped counting. Felt body's rhythm, practiced longer with less fatigue. Mind's resistance created more exhaustion than movement. Real teaching in Zazen. 1 night, 4 hours. Uncertainty became liberation. No future, no past, just breathe. Observer and observed merged. Awareness experiencing itself aware. Tears flowed. Ryokan spoke, voice shifting through time. In silence, a thought arose, not your own, but deeper. You who hear this story feel restlessness. This training isn't locked in the past. Practice is eternal. If you're ready to walk this warrior path, cultivate presence. The community awaits you. Words hung like incense. Tomorrow, water sparring. Week 3. Monk attacked. Be water around attacks. Ichi flowed continuously. Strikes hit only space. By week 4, integrated. Wake without alarm. Practice without counting. Yamamoto Sensei arrived. You've become water. Now fire. Fire transforms. You've learned to flow around. Now burn through. Use rage as fuel. Descending, Ichi felt transformed. Fire waited below. Chapter 7. The Final Confrontation. 6 months had passed since that broken bokken in the tournament. Ichi had walked through earth, water, fire, and wind. Each ring had broken him and rebuilt him into something sharper. Now came Void Ring, the final teaching that would either complete him or destroy what remained. Yamamoto Sensei sent him alone to the coast with simple instructions. Sit before the ocean and wait. For 3 days, Ichi meditated on the beach. His practice had become effortless now, presence flowing through him like breath. But on the 4th day, watching the endless waves crash against the shore, something inside him shattered. The ocean stretched infinitely in every direction. The waves came without ceasing, without end, forever. And in that moment, the terrible truth struck him. This training would never end. There was no finish line waiting, no moment when he could finally rest and say he'd arrived. He would wake at dawn and practice until the day he died. The war against unconsciousness was eternal. The realization made him physically sick. He fell to his knees and vomited into the sand, not from illness, but from the weight of forever pressing down on him. For 3 hours he sat in that despair, wanting to quit, wanting to return to the comfortable lie that discipline was just a bridge to an easier life. But that bridge didn't exist. He'd already crossed too far to go back. Then, slowly, something shifted. The despair didn't vanish. He simply stopped fighting it, stopped asking when it would get easier. The answer came to him like wind across water. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. Everything was reframed in that instant. The question wasn't when the practice ended. The question was what he would practice today. Not tomorrow, not yesterday. Today, this moment, this single breath. He remembered something about Musashi, the greatest swordsman in Japan, painted every day until his death. Not to become a painter, simply because warriors paint. The doing itself was the becoming. The eternal practice was the point. Ichi stood and walked to the water's edge. The cold ocean touched his feet, infinite and uncaring and perfect. He spoke to the waves, to himself, to whatever force had led him here. I accept this. The training never ends, and I accept it. This isn't a bridge to somewhere easier. This is where I live now. The ocean didn't answer. It just continued being ocean, eternal and present, and completely itself. And in that acceptance, Ichi became himself completely. Not who he'd been before the tournament, not who he'd hoped to become. Just this, a man who was aware, who could flow, who had learned to accept the weight of forever. A warrior. When he returned to the dojo, Yamamoto Sensei took one look at his face and nodded. The old master didn't need words to see what had happened. The struggle had stopped being a struggle. It had become Ichi's nature. Yamamoto Sensei walked to the wall and selected a katana. Real steel, not practice wood. He offered it to Ichi with both hands. This blade belonged to your grandfather. He was a good samurai, honorable and brave, but he walked the path asleep. You've walked it awake. That's the difference between a man who practices and a man who is. Ichi accepted the sword, feeling its perfect weight. Now you live it, the master said. Every day, earth to track yourself, water to flow, fire to transform, wind to stay humble, and void underneath everything, accepting that the path never ends. Ichi looked at the blade, at his reflection in the steel. And if I fail? The master smiled. You will fail. Every day you'll fail at something. Warriors aren't people who don't fail. Warriors are people who fail and continue anyway. Final reveal. The warrior truth. 10 years later, Ichi's dojo. Students are eager, afraid. He recognized their hunger, their delusion, hope that discipline makes life easier. It wouldn't. 10 years walking 5 rings daily, practices invisible like breathing, struggle with his nature. Here's the truth. Discipline at this level doesn't make you happy, makes you functional, capable, present, powerful. Happiness isn't the point. Warrior's Way isn't about feeling good. It's being effective, being conscious, acting with total presence in any moment. You came here dissatisfied. Think discipline will fix that. It won't. It transforms your relationship to it. You'll still feel restless, still face difficulties, but awake inside them instead of asleep. He drew his grandfather's katana. Musashi wrote Book of 5 Rings after 60 duels, 30 years wandering. I have never had a preference for one thing over another. Not emptiness, fullness without attachment. Mastered everything by being attached to nothing. Students leaned forward. Final secret. Discipline isn't achieving some state and maintaining it. It's a continuous transformation. Every day is different. Every day learning. Every day practicing. No arrival. Only eternal path. Sheathed blade. Question isn't, am I disciplined? Question is, am I practicing today? Not yesterday. Not tomorrow. Today. This moment. This breath. That's all warrior ever has. Young student, when will I know if I've succeeded? Smiled. When you stop asking. When practice itself becomes success. When you understand there's nowhere to arrive because you're already here, already doing it, already walking the path. The samurai lesson. 20 years after the tournament defeat, Ichi was older, face weathered, hands scarred. The young student before him looked eager, desperate. Ichi saw himself at 23, saw the delusion, the person who would die for the warrior. Master, where do I begin? The question traveling through time to the first warrior, who wondered how to become more. His answer wasn't just for this boy. For every person who would hear this story, every man who felt the call, every warrior yet to begin. You begin here, now, this moment, and you don't walk alone. Join others who choose this way. We're all students together, all warriors in training. He handed the boy a broom. The same task every student began. Sweep the dojo. Learn that practice is in sweeping, not after. Welcome to the path. Let's train together. The boy took a broom, began to sweep, didn't understand yet that this simple act was the teaching. Presence in sweeping was the same presence needed in sword, meditation, and life itself. Circle complete. The student became a master. The master became a student. Teaching continued, as it always had, as it always would. Walk with presence. Live with purpose. Become unshakable.